a thundering disgrace. It was that very phrase, uttered back in October 1976 by Irish Minister for Defence Paddy Donegan, regarding the President of the day, Carol O'Dálaig, that led to the resignation of that President. Fast forward to the present day, and our current President in his second term, Michael D Higgins, a politician who, though I am diametrically opposed to his socialist view of the world, I had a lot of respect for the man. In fact, I voted for the man in his first term. He'd been a figure in Irish politics for as long as I can remember, and although from the Labour Party and a socialist-leaning man, he was always a safe pair of hands. He never strayed too far from the beaten path, and he never did a whole lot of harm, as far as I could see. He was Minister for Culture and Arts and the Gaeltacht and stuff like that, and he did good work. He seemed to be a man who was devoted to his country, to his culture, and to his people. And I and many other people thought that his ascendancy to the presidency was no bad thing, because the presidency is a sort of an honorary, a ceremonial role, let's say. Something like the monarchy in Britain. The president doesn't really have a lot of what you might call direct power. It's more of a statesman-like thing. And I and many others felt that Michael D Higgins was a safe pair of hands. An intelligent man, an erudite man, a well-spoken man, a man who had seemed to have a very good grasp of the world and would be a very good fit for this type of office in the twilight of his career. But although having said he would only serve one term, which is a 7-year term, he went on to serve a second term, and that, I believe, was a mistake. Because as his second term developed, he started to get more and more out of step, out of tune with the basics of the role as it was intended. Let me put it this way. It's as if, as Irish society, and I mean Irish society as in the elites, the people driving the bus of Irish society, as that whole bubble, and it is a bubble, veered ever more leftwards into Looney Tunes leftland, Michael D Higgins, it seems to me, was able to let his hair down. Well, the man doesn't have a lot of hair, but metaphorically speaking, let his hair down more and more and let all those leftist socialist juices flow out. It's as if he became emboldened by the ever leftward lurch of Irish society into opining all kinds of things that really it's not the president's job to do. I immediately think of when Fidel Castro died and his gushing and lavish praise for the man. It seems he was one of his idols, one of his heroes. Yes, Fidel Castro, that butcher, that absolute evil monster. But as Michael D Higgins put it at the time, and I quote, "Fidel Castro will be remembered as a giant among global leaders." Yes, when the president of a modern Western democracy is heaping lavish praise on one of the most evil despots and oppressive leaders that the 20th century had ever seen, let's just say it's not a good look. Then, in July of last year, he sent a congratulatory letter to the newly appointed president of Iran. Yes, that Iran, one of the most oppressive regimes in the entire world. Did he have to do it? No, he chose to do it. And then he was absolutely incandescent with rage when the letter got leaked and got into the public domain. He immediately set about blaming the Israelis for leaking it when, as I understand it, the letter was available on some Iranian government website. So there's that. Add to this his increasing penchant for giving outspoken speeches at the UN and various other places about global inequality, capitalism and its ills, and environmental degradation. Now, whilst you might say these are all lofty things to talk about, I would say this: it's not the job of the Irish president to be getting involved in these things. It's not the job of an Irish president to be a social justice warrior. He can have all the personal opinions he wants, but as president, It's a different job. We don't elect a president here in Ireland so that they can go off and opine about the world's ills in any manner they like with whatever opinions they hold. We don't elect a president of Ireland so that they can prop up and give succor to oppressive, violent and despotic regimes around the world. And we don't elect a president so they can heap gushing praise on recently deceased, evil, despotic dictators. It seems to me that as time has gone on, our president seems to feel that it's okay to come out of the closet, out of the bushes, metaphorically, and be as lefty-leaning and as lefty-spoken as he likes, because Ireland Inc., Ireland's elites and Ireland's society, I mean the people who run it, have gone so far to the left, who'd even notice another communist? Which brings me up to the present day. I know what you're asking, but what has he done lately? Well, I'm here to tell you. Unless you've been living under a rock here in Ireland, you cannot fail to have noticed that the whole mainstream media and political class have gone absolutely doolally over events in the Middle East. The whole Israeli-Palestinian situation seems to be the cause du jour. Nobody seems to give much of a damn that there's genocide going on in the Sudan. Nobody seems to give a toss that there's also genocide going on in Yemen. No, all eyes are focused, it seems, on Gaza. Now, my position is simply this. I am against conflict, I'm against war, I'm against terrorism, I'm against human suffering wherever it's happening in the world. I'm against it all. I believe peace is the way forward. I'm for peaceful resolutions to all these problems. It's always the innocent civilians who bear the brunt of all of this turmoil and conflict. The Middle East, for as long as I've been around, and I'm old, has been an absolute quagmire of human suffering. It's layer upon layer upon layer of intricacies, of conflict, of historical grievances. It's an absolute morass. But in recent times, the political class, egged on by the mainstream media and the NGO sector, which is bloated and huge here and packed to the gills with far left lunatics, has been wading in to this crazy, horrific situation that's unfolding in Israel and Gaza. And the whole media political apparatus of Ireland has been firmly, completely and utterly in the tank for one side. The level of rhetoric over the past months coming from our political class, coming from our leaders, coming from the mainstream media, coming from all the NGO leftists is off the scale. And it has brought the attention of the entire world on to Ireland. Ireland is a neutral country. We should be sympathetic, empathetic and supportive for peaceful resolution in that part of the world. Our leaders should not be inserting themselves into a conflict that is on the other side of the world that we have no influence over whatsoever. But that is exactly what they are doing. It seems every week in Ireland you can quite happily, and they do, march up and down O'Connell Street waving Hamas flags and Hezbollah flags with not a care in the world. But if someone was to try and do that, flying a great big swastika flag, they'd be in the back of a police car in the blink of an eye. And I say, I want them both locked up. Both flag carriers. But in Ireland, one side gets a free pass. And the ongoing rhetoric has been so vitriolic and so anti-Israel that the Israeli embassy actually pulled out of Ireland completely. This is a diplomatic disaster. Why are our leaders getting stuck in here and dragging the whole of Ireland with them? The incessant anti-Israeli commentary coming from Ireland's elites, its politicians, including the erstwhile Taoiseach Simon Harris, including the President Michael D Higgins, has made Ireland appear increasingly in the world media and on the world stage like a bastion of anti-Semitism. This is not the case. Ordinary Irish people are in no way anti-Semitic. But this notion, will have been in no way helped by what happened in Dublin yesterday with our esteemed President Michael D Higgins. An event was to be held yesterday and was held yesterday in the Mansion House to commemorate the Holocaust. A very important event, very somber event. And the President, Michael D Higgins, had been invited to give a keynote address. But, and I watched this develop over the past few weeks, it became increasingly apparent that the majority, it seems, of the Jewish community, including the Chief Rabbi and the Jewish Representative Council of Ireland, did not want President Higgins to give that address. They no longer counted President Higgins because of various statements, because of his criticisms of Israel and the Israeli positions, and because of events that he had attended. They did not see him, they did not count him, let's just say, as a friend. They were calling on him to forgo the invitation and not to attend this event. But did President Higgins heed this sentiment? No, he didn't at all. He was determined to go ahead. He was determined to push on through like a typical Marxist leftist. He was going to give that speech whether they wanted him there or not. One might almost be given to thinking that as a dyed-in-the-wool leftist, he simply couldn't resist the opportunity to give a good old-fashioned lecture to those Jews about the error of their ways. When it became apparent that President Higgins was coming, whether they wanted him or not, he was then implored upon by no less than a Holocaust survivor himself, Tommy Reichenthal, who has spent decades educating young Irish children in schools about the terrors, the horrors of the Holocaust, not to politicise the event. Again, did President Higgins listen? Did he heed? In typical leftist tone-deaf fashion, no, he did not. He gave the speech and in typical Michael D. Higgins fashion inserted his own agenda into the speech, leading to a number of members of the audience protesting by standing up and turning their backs on the president, which very quickly turned into this.
Hey, le reste au moins. Leave her alone. Leave the ceremony. What are you doing?
This is my ceremony. You can't take it off my ceremony. You're pushing on it. This is mine. No.
I got your face. I got your name.
Just somewhat.
No. Somewhat.
This is not people, right?
What you are seeing there is a lady, one of a number of Jewish people who were manhandled, jostled, and thrown out of a Holocaust memorial service for silently protesting, just standing up and turning their backs on someone they, and I believe most of the Jewish community, didn't want there to begin with. Those images have gone around the world. They've gone viral, particularly in the United States, where this is going down really, really badly. It is only adding fuel to the fire of the notion that Ireland is a far leftist, anti-Semitic heartland. President Higgins is a buffoon. He could have avoided this, in my opinion. He should have avoided this. The mood music was absolutely crystal clear. He was not wanted there. He went anyway, above the wishes of the people who were there to commemorate a somber and sad time in their history. He politicized it, and now we have the atrocious, crazy optics of Jewish people being ejected from a Holocaust memorial event. President Higgins has lost the plot. The man has gone on too long. He's now an embarrassment to the country, inserting himself into places where he should not be as President of Ireland. He's making a fool of us. He is dragging our good name through the mud on the international stage, all just to fan his own ego. Is President Higgins, in the words of Paddy Donegan, a thundering disgrace? You be the judge.